Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Tell me you haven't been sat there since last week. I know I had a go saying that you were late, but you haven't camped out with a book, just literally waiting for the next episode, have you?
I've just been, sitting here chilling. I signed in early, and I thought I'd wait for my mate. And no, I was just having a little read. I promise you, I haven't sat there all week. I mean, I thought about it.
Yeah, well, it would have been one way of avoiding it, wouldn't it? But anyway, mate. Yeah, how are you? All right.
I'm very well. Good to see you, Sam. You're looking very well. You're looking like you've been busy, but not ridiculously busy. You actually look chilled, is what I'm thinking. You look very calm.
Intriguing. Don't know why that'd be. I've had a few bits on. I actually had a bit of disappointing news. I didn't get a job that I really wanted. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before, haven't we? We did a whole episode on sort of like rejection and not securing jobs and how you deal with that sort of the negativity of the industry.
Yeah.
One of the negativities of the industry, anyway, which is quite a common one because let's face it, for every 100 or so jobs you go for, you might get one. So
it's the horrible fact of life, isn't it? Really,
well, yeah.
It's an inevitability.
Yes, exactly. So it's been an odd week in that sense. I've still had work on, but I expected to have a little bit more, and it rocked me a little bit. But I've sort of my plan is, as is always, to sort of I don't know, sort of rise up from that and kind of have some sort of surge of right. No, I'm gonna prove people wrong or what have you. But anyway, I guess it's nice to sort of show that side rather than constantly talking about, oh yeah, I've done this job and I've done this job, to actually be able to go, I didn't do this job, I didn't get it, I wasn't successful.
Yeah,
yeah. I guess that's
It's funny because sometimes you do sort of think, not out of arrogance, but you think, oh, it'd be great if I got that. I think I might do, and then you start to plan around something that hasn't quite happened.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, because we know the realities of the business, one shouldn't plan, but then you go, oh, that's a shame. And that's when I think that's when you get disappointed. I mean, I've long, people said, just do the job, just do the audition, forget about it, go home, walk around the corner, have a cup of coffee and forget you've done it, or send the self-tape off and, do something else. But you can't help but, being humans, you go, oh,
it's easier said than done, 100%. Yeah. Like, we all advise it, but you simply can't because your brain is not geared that way. And as you say, the real difficulty comes when you go, oh, well, if I get that, then I'll be able to do that. And, or I better not, I'll not take work on that, or I won't apply for work on that date because I've already got that.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of going, well, I don't want the aggro of getting two things and then having to choose and having to let one down, and which is a viable thing to think about. But where do you draw? Where does that confidence become?
Oh, you've just said the word. I was going to say, because there's the optimism, and we always have to be optimistic in this business, because if we didn't, we'd all be very, very depressed. And there's that fine balance between optimism and confidence, because if you didn't think, oh, if I get that job, then I'll have to think of blah, blah, blah. And if you didn't have that confidence of sort of almost planning ahead and thinking that you've got it, when you walked in the audition or did the self-tape or whatever, you wouldn't, you'd go, oh, I'm not going to get it anyway, so why, you wouldn't bother. So there's that fine line, which we've spoken about before, that fine line between confidence, arrogance and optimism. And you have to have all sort of three mixed in a good blend. And some jobs you get very overconfident, you go, oh, I've definitely got that. And you don't, you go, oh, shit. And others, you go, well, I cocked that up, nowhere near that one. And suddenly you get the phone call and you think, what? No,
Yeah,
but then, like you say, you go for these things, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I've got time on my hands now. Those 2 days that I was going to do, or those weeks or whatever, you go, oh, bugger, And also, not to put too fine a point on it, sometimes you spend the money as well. You go, "Ooh, that'd be a nice job,"
Yes, yeah. Or you go, oh, thank God, if that comes in, I'll be all right. Like, yeah,
Yes,
I know this is
yes,
coming
yes,
up and blah blah blah. And yeah,
yeah,
it's a really difficult one because you can look at it in so many different ways. Like you say, people say, right, do the audition, leave it there. But if you then get that call saying you haven't got it and you don't care, was that job not right for you? Did you not really want it in the first place? But equally, like, if you get like that about every single one, you'd never stay in this industry because you'd be disappointed all the time. So it's such a difficult thing to manage.
it is, it is, and everybody has their own way of getting through it, don't they? Everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of dealing with rejection, or even in sometimes of dealing with acceptance. Because some people go, "Oh God, now I've got to go on tour." Now, if they've got a family or responsibilities or other things, very often nowadays people have a sort of, what's commonly known as a side hustle. They think, "Oh, am I going to be able to keep that job? Can I get someone in to cover for me or whatever?" And that becomes more and more a reality now that people go, So you do have to, I mean, I think we all reply. I was speaking to someone at the weekend on a job, and they were saying there's a book, there's a program, a film or something about the yes man, the man who always says yes, and he does that, and I've heard of it. I haven't, but it sees where he takes him, and sometimes you do have to go, yes, I'll do it, and then take the consequences, but then you do have to have a little bit of forward thinking about A, if I get the job, what am I going to do, and B, if I don't, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So it's a very fine line. All those things mixed in. I mean, I know lots of people have it from we're not the only ones, but other people that work in other industries, other professions, because we're all on shorter term contracts now. We spoke about that a little while ago, saying that you don't have a job for life these days. It is contract to contract, and what they call it, the gig economy, and that, and 0 hours contracts and all that. So everyone's lives are uncertain.
It's obviously heightened for us, though, isn't it? Because, and I'm speaking very generally here, and of course, as you said, it's not always the case, and there are other examples, but more often than not, your average Joe, your normal person going for a job is going for a job because they're hoping it's going to last them a year or more. That's realistic, I think. For us, a lot of these things we're going for will last a day. They might last a week. Yes, there are tours. Yes, there are films that will last, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, or possibly longer. But what do you reckon? 98% of what you go for is going to be a 1 or 2 day thing at most.
So, certainly nowadays, yes.
So that disappointment or that dealing with emotion for an audition, i.e., a job interview, is so much more regular that you have to deal with it more. But equally, does that then mean that we should be used to it more? I don't know.
That's true. I mean, like you say, you've had the knockback this week, and it's like, how long does that disappointment last? Or you have to rationalise it and say, what did I learn from that experience? Was it something I did wrong? Was I just wrong for it? Should I not have put myself up for that job? I think dealing with the reasons you didn't get the job in a practical way, for me, is the way of. Sometimes I can go, well, forget it, but sometimes you go, actually, was it a bad self-tape? Did I do if it's an in-person, did I not prepare? Should I have read more about the director or know something more about the company? Do you know what I mean? And you question your preparation,
Yeah, but the difficulty in that is 99.999 times out of 100, you don't get feedback to answer those questions. So
absolutely, yes.
And then are you dwelling on it too much? Are you beating yourself up about something that actually you'll never really know the answer to? And the only logical solution or way to move forward is to move on to the next thing. I mean, but
absolutely.
That's a good question, because we were talking about something. We weren't talking about it, but we were about to get onto a conversation, but then sort of ran out of time. You were about to ask me a couple of weeks back about things I do in my spare time, or we were about to talk about hobbies.
Yeah.
Do you then need to step away, albeit even if it's for an hour or what have you, but let's say you've got that rejection, do you need to then do something that is in no way connected to the industry, something that you enjoy, something that gives you pleasure? And funny because you were obviously reading when I came in earlier, and I know you are a big reader. Always good.
I love reading. Yeah,
but
yeah.
is that something that I guess it's work-life balance, isn't it? We love what we do for a living. So I tell you what, here we go. Here's the. I'm going all over the place with this, but I guess I've sort of landed where I want to go. Do you have any hobbies? Do you have anything you do for pleasure that entertains yourself that you can hand on heart say is not in any way connected to what we do for work? How's that for a question?
That's a bloody good question. I mean, I play dabble ukulele, so I suppose, but I play that a lot of the time when I'm in shows. So let's step away from that one.
Yeah. The reading, for example, I know you quite often will read scripts or will read the screenplays.
Yeah.
So yes, it's not always that, but it is the creative industry, isn't it? So
yeah, I suppose. I mean, I suppose to do that, I would have to be completely away from the arts. I do enjoy gardening, and I mean, and when I say gardening, I mean I work for my mum, do little jobs for my mum.
I was going to say, love gardening in that second floor flat in central London. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. But we have got a big garden here, and we do keep pots and flowers and stuff in the garden, and I do, and I become a little bit more doing it a little bit more now. I mean, I love. There's a lot of people know I love natural history. I love animals and birds and things like that. And so I do a little bit of but again, it's a time thing because I bought myself a good camera. I love taking photographs of birds and animals and things in the garden. If I go away, I try and always take it with me so I can. But then it's having the time. Do you think? And I hate to think that I'm just someone who picks something up and puts it down and doesn't do it properly. Yeah. I'd love to do things properly, but it is finding the time.
But I would still argue picking up a camera, that's being creative. I'm being facetious here, of course. And
no, I think you're right because I do pick it up and think. I mean, that's born out of I bought a really good camera because it's got a video on it and a really good camera, and I thought, well, if my phone doesn't work, I can always shoot on that, or I can actually. And I did start shooting little bits of video, and then when we do the productions, I then used video cameras to video the show. So yeah, okay. I don't. I don't know. It's a tricky one.
I'll give you some examples from.
What about yourself? Well, yeah, go on. Fuck.
I love going out for a meal. Really love going out for a meal. Now, I don't think you can, short of being really sort of overly linking things and trying to find those sort of tenuous links. I don't think going out for a nice meal can be linked back to the performance industry. Of course it can. You can go out with friends that you work with, etc., etc. But I don't think there is anything particularly creative as the end user about going out for a nice meal. That is something I love.
I mean, aside from that, I mean, I do love cooking. So I do a lot of cooking at home. That, I suppose, in a way, is linked to eating and that. So, yeah, that's probably... But I wouldn't call it something that... I wouldn't call it a hobby. I mean, obviously, you have to eat to live. So I probably enjoy. I do find it relaxing. I know some people don't find cooking relaxing. I do find cooking relaxing.
I'm one of those.
I mean, I do sometimes. I mean, I will pick up a recipe and we'll go. I mean, I love eating.
And
yeah, and I put a little bit of weight on recently, and I thought that's got to be, So I've got myself on, and actually started a couple of days ago. Right, I'm on a health routine now, So I've eaten all the sausages, no more sausages, no more pies. It's it's onto the fish and fruit and yogurt and stuff. Like this morning it was strawberries, banana, and yogurt for breakfast, whereas a little while ago it would have been toast and jam. Yeah, or a couple of eggs. Yeah, so I think going out for a meal, good one. I like that.
Yeah,
that's
So, I mean, if we were delving into sort of hobbies, my biggest hobby, the thing I love more than anything, probably, is going to the theatre, because I love theatre, I love musicals, I love plays, and that is why I do it, because I love being a customer, whatever you want to phrase it as, an end user, as much as I love being the creative. Probably enjoy being the creative slightly more, but
Yeah.
it's far easier if you take money out of the equation to watch other people being creative than it is to be creative yourself, because you have to be given that opportunity. Whereas you throw money at a theatre, you can go and watch anything you like. But obviously that's heavily linked with what I do for a living, and it's intriguing, isn't it? Because the point is that we are enormously lucky and privileged to do a job that a lot of people do for a hobby, a lot of people really, really enjoy, and we can call it work. So
It's our profession,
sort of on it, isn't it?
it's our profession, it's our job. It's interesting you said people, because I know a lot of people. Well, you see a lot of people now that, and the industry is far more open. The people that do acting, they act. It's a hobby, and then we get into the amateur professional discussion. But more often than you do meet people that go, oh yeah, I do a bit of acting, and they start to make money out of it. It becomes okay. So are you making money out of your hobby? Or is your hobby become your profession? Or sometimes, like I say, you people have side hustles. Has your profession become your hobby?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people that particularly female actors, when they have families, they have to step back. They make that choice, and I'm not going to go into all those ins and outs of that. But then getting back into the business and working back, then you're a working mother, or are you an actor who's a mother, or and that can be terribly. And so a lot of people that I know that are mums and dads, of course, and because a lot of dads step aside from work and bring the children up, and brilliant. But then it's that fine line. Then is how much acting can you do or not do before you feel it's just a hobby, or it doesn't fulfil, the artistic drive in you. So I mean, the other thing is, another question is, do you have a hobby, or do you have something that if you weren't acting, you could happily do to earn a living?
God, what a question that is.
That is, somebody asked me that the other day and said, if you for whatever reason, if it was, if you could have been something else, do you have yes, I did. And I think I've said it in the past. I mean, I'm very practical. I love building and making things, and that's come about, through doing the production side and making a bit of scenery and stuff. I could do that. I could work. I could work backstage. I couldn't work on the stage backstage. I couldn't be a stagehand or because that's a little bit too close.
You're
for
talking
comfort.
about like the carpet set creation.
Yeah, I could happily be in a workshop, make something, and then go and look at it on stage and go, yeah, that'll do the job. That works. I like that. I can't think of anything else. Nothing else.
But funnily enough, that's still very much linked with what we do. You haven't.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So, equally, as you know, I trained as an audio engineer, so I worked in post production, which has become very useful because some idiot decided we should do a podcast. And equally, obviously, I do voiceover work, so I'm able to be my own producer for that. So yes, I have other skills that absolutely are slightly linked to this that I could do as a vocation. And I have done at times, long before sort of doing this full time, if you can call being self-employed freelancer full time. So there is that, but I don't know. There's things that I'm very technically minded, as you know, and I used to repair computers and do sort of upgrades on computers. I mean, the sad fact of the matter is you can't really do that anymore because they're all now designed so only the manufacturers can do stuff to them. But
yeah,
certainly going back a few years, I could do stuff like that. I was going to sort of spin off from what we're talking, not spin off, it's still very much the same subject, but I've got another one and I want to throw this at you, and equally I will answer as well. And I'm not thinking about my answers. I'm totally focused on what you're about to say. And just, I'd like to see if you could name some of your hobbies that you do fairly regularly, and whether they all do, I mean, gardening aside, because we talked about that one, but whether they do all in some way link back to what we do. So give me 3 things you like to do in your spare time. Not that we have a great deal of spare time, as we explained a couple of weeks ago. Just because we're not stood on a stage or in front of a camera doesn't mean we're not working, because we're always doing stuff connected with that next job or an existing job or even a previous job, showing what we've done. But yeah, let's go 3 things. Tell me 3 things you like to do. Don't overthink. Go for it.
Right. So I enjoy reading. I listen to a lot of music, particularly in the car and the radio. And I'm not going to do the cooking thing, gardening thing. It was tricky. Reading, music, and I like. Oh, bugger.
Go on then. What were you going to say on that one?
Driving, traveling, getting around. But
okay. So we've got you through. We've got you through. We put them to. Those are 3. So we've already discussed reading, but we'll do it a bit more. So simple question: what kind of books do you tend to read? First of all, are you more fiction or non-fiction?
I would say fiction. However, at the moment, the book I was reading at the beginning there is non-fiction, but stuff I read a lot of is I love classic novels, Dickens, Hardy, and stuff like that. And I love fantasy novels, love science fiction and fantasy. And the one I'm reading at the moment is non-fiction, but it's travel. It's about it's a famous travel writer, and he's written his autobiography based around his 8 biggest journeys around the world. So very, very much escapism.
Yes.
Total escapism.
So
it's nothing.
Things that jumped out to me there. You love the classics. Now, I think we'd struggle to name a famous classic, that isn't also a play, a film, a TV series of some sort, or something like that. So,
probably, yes.
So, in a roundabout way, you are reading, becoming familiar with scripts, with texts, with stories, that there is a high likelihood, even if you don't end up performing in, you will audition for a role within one of those fairly regularly.
Yeah, or that genre or whatever. Yeah, or certainly have watched the film, play or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly that, yeah. Music. Not quite as connected, I would say, because you don't tend to perform as a musician, purely a musician. But I've done lots of shows with you where the ukulele has come out and you've performed and you've worked that into other certain shows. And equally, yes, you're not a massive musical theatre fan, but having a musical ability plays a huge part, even if it's a play with music or the odd show where there's like one song dotted into it.
Yeah.
That, as we've talked about previously, is practice, or is honing your craft, or is keeping your thumb in, or whatever you want to call it. And then we come to driving. Now, you say you enjoy driving. Just to clarify, we're not talking competitive. We're talking just literally travel. Like, so
I love to. I love to get in the car and drive.
Stunting, not anything like that. No, that is something absolutely unavoidable in what we do. But I'm deciphering from what you're saying that there will be times where you go, do you know what? I've not got this to do. I've not got that to do. I want to go for a drive. So you're getting the pleasure of the scenery. Do you get pleasure from the actual experience of driving?
Yeah, I love physically driving, like being on the road. Yeah.
So
I mean, that has been born out of necessity. I have to enjoy driving because, the weekend I drove 300 miles. So, I probably average that every weekend if I'm doing a show or a gig. So, yes. But yeah, I actually enjoy sitting in a car and being in that space. Yeah. I find it.
So, I guess if you were being really picky and overthinking everything could be linked to something else in some clever way.
Yes.
But the 3 hobbies, the 3 enjoyable things that you do that sprang to mind as the top three or the most common three, without taking a couple of others into account we'd already sort of discussed, all link quite heavily to what you do for work.
Yeah,
And
can
that
be done.
is just another proving point to the fact that we do what we do because we love it. Yes, we have to work bloody hard. Yes, funnily enough, I think it's quite a thankless task. Yes, we get a round of applause at times, but I don't think it's appreciated for what goes into it a lot of the time, particularly at our level where we are not Oscar worthy or what. No, that's wrong. It's not that we're not Oscar worthy. We're not in the mix.
We're not in the mix at the moment. Yeah.
But just, and I think you can be a really small part, be on stage for 10 seconds, be in the film background for 3 seconds, but it doesn't mean that your contribution is any less worthy, but it's quite often less thanked, less respected. I don't
Very
know.
often it's not acknowledged, is it? You're not in the role of credits that come up at the end. You're not, but if you're there for a reason, and therefore you're valid. If you weren't in the back, if you're an extra supporting artist, whatever you want to call them, those performers, they're there because the director, producer, writer, whoever, the creatives behind that finished product on the screen goes, we need X number of people there. We need to make this look like this. We need them. You're there for a reason. That's why I, little side issue, man, I can't stand people who treat, extras and supporting artists badly. I think it's wrong, because there is a skill to doing what they do, and there's certainly a lot of bloody patience.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why the name has changed. So you refer to supporting artists. That is a fairly modern terminology.
Yes, it
Before,
is.
it was extras and crowd. Now, we still do refer to extras, but there's almost sort of like a negativity to that. Oh, you're an extra. You're not.
You're extra. You're extra to what the important part.
Yeah.
You're there to support. Yeah.
But the word artist, I think, is the important bit, because
absolutely, yeah.
There's a real fine line in a scene where you're in a crowd and there are, I don't know, let's say 300 people in a crowd, and the person is 3/4 of the way back, slightly shorter than the one stood in front of you. You can barely see them. They're there for that. I would argue is not a skilled thing to do. There is not the point of being crowd is that you don't have to have a certain ability to be able to do that. You still have to be selected, so you have to meet the diversity, you have to fit in, etc., etc. But the essence is you don't need any training or any qualifications other than being alive, I suppose, to be able to be in that sort of scenario. But on the contrary to that, if you are in something where you are a passerby in the background, you've still got to be able to time it. You've got to be able to look natural, not like, oh God, I've got to walk like this. I've got to time it. You've got to be able to not stare at what's going on the camera like that.
Yeah.
There is more skill to it than just being a person and being.
Sorry to interrupt, but there are a lot of people, and I've met them and you've met them on set, that have made their hobby into, that they may be very keen amateur performers, that are performing, in musicals, and they're really great. But on that day, it's, is a man buying a newspaper, or, it's a family walking along the street, or a guy walking his dog, or they're members of in a court scene, or whatever, those millions of scenarios. But those people are there. I mean, I spoke to people recently that I've been doing some filming. The guy was, I couldn't do what you do all day long. He stood there. He said, we did that scene 20. He's not counting. We did that scene 26 times. He said, from all different angles and count. I said, yeah. He said, I couldn't do that. He said, how do you keep doing it? I said, well, you just did it. He said, yeah, but you had to say the lines over and over. I said, well, there are variations, or you change things to give the director and the editor things, you keep it fresh. But in essence, sometimes they just want you to do it exactly the same every time, because they want it to match and whatever. He said, I couldn't do that. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm an accountant. I said, what are you here today for? Why are you here? He said, I've always wanted to sort of do a little bit and find out what's going on. And, he said, and I said, would you do it again? He went, Yeah, I'd think twice though. He said, "I'm all right today because we were in a lovely room and it was comfortable and they gave us nice food and drink and looked up and all the supporting artists were looked after." But he turned his hobby
Mm.
into something. He was getting paid. They were getting, we were all getting, they were getting paid very well and looked after very well. But I said, it was interesting. He said, "Well, I said, I do it every day. I would do this every single day of my life if it was possible.
Yeah.
I'd get up at 5, that's, but he went, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that." I said, "But I couldn't sit in an office every day and sit in front of a laptop and do what you do every day." So I said, "We're all different people." I said, "But it's funny we're here doing this today." I said, "Is it, will you continue?" He said, "Oh, yeah, it's just a bit of a hobby. I've signed up with some agents." But he turned his hobby into something,
Into a money spinner, essentially.
into a money-making side hustle hobby,
Not a job because it wasn't a long-term thing, but it was something that he could do that he enjoyed.
Yeah.
That he'd suddenly been able to monetize, essentially.
Yes.
Albeit as a one-off or as a very sporadic thing. But yeah, so going back, it's quite easy to link things we do. And is that why we're in a creative industry? Because it is our main focus. So if I was to do the same and name...
Yeah, I was going to say, do the same. Three things.
I would say, I've already said going out to eat. We'll put that one to one side. I love a board game. I love a board game. That's something that I do as much as I possibly can. I adore film and TV, so I spend a lot of time sat in front of a screen in that respect. And I'll throw into that mix watching sport. I love playing sport, but I can't call it a hobby because I'm old and broken and haven't played sport for a long time. I'd love to do it, but I can't. So I will say watching some kind of entertainment on a screen. There's a broad term for you.
That's a broad field, but yeah.
And do you know what? I'm going to say shopping within reason. I collect football shirts, and I always love the ones that I haven't got in my collection, etc. So how can those three link? Well, obviously the middle one is simple. So watching film, TV, theatre. Love going to the theatre. Anything watching something entertaining. It explains itself, doesn't it? Why do I do it? Because I love the feeling of performing. I enjoy it. I love how much pride and pleasure I get from it. Equally, I love being the other side of it. So they are intrinsically linked. Simple as that.
I would say as well. I would say the collecting of the football shirts, because I know you regard those, and I've seen the collection, and it is quite incredible. And I looked at those, and I said to you, I see those, and I know you do, as a representation of the sport of football, which I know you love, but also they are works of art.
Yeah.
And I know you are about to frame them and put them up and exhibit them as works of art. Yeah. So I would say that those have become
creative,
an artistic representation of how you appreciate sport.
Yeah.
So I think you bought them very much. I would say almost 80% they're works of art because you like looking at them and you go.
Okay, so there we go. And you found another link in there. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And I was going to go. The other one was board games. Now, on face value, that is something entertaining. How can it be linked? Can it be linked to the industry? Well, actually, you're living through, be it your playing piece or you're
playing you're playing a character,
world, and you're trying. I think it's striving for a win. It's that competitive nature, and that. Is it the seeking for plaudits? Is it being the winner is the same as being on a stage and taking that bow and taking that applause?
That's interesting. Yeah, but you're also taking on certainly. I mean, video games I don't play a great deal of at all, as you well know. But I mean, I love a board game. We play board games together, and you do get into a character. You do start taking on a role. You do, whatever board game it is, you start to inhabit that world, if you like. So I think there is a performance and there is an achievement element to that. So that's very interesting.
The question that overwhelms from all of this is, regardless of what we're doing, are we working? or are we linked in some way to what we do?
I think we are linked in some way. My way of answering that, and it's my psyche, is if I can do something that I can do it, wrong phrase, but guilt free. I can relax while I'm doing it. If I felt like I actually should be doing something else, or this book is a waste of time or whatever, it's distracting me. If I can do something as pure escapism and it relaxes me, and I don't feel guilty, I don't feel that I'm wasting my time, then I think, for me personally, this is a total personal thing, it is valid, and it is a form of relaxation, of escapism. There's a lot of stuff that I do pick up sometimes and go, I should at least spend an hour, and picking up emails and doing some, and the other thing, apart from looking for the work, is we have to go shopping. We have to, maintain our homes.
There's life.
Maintain our relationships. That's not work, but that falls between the two. Those are responsibilities. And sometimes work takes it away from those responsibilities, and you have to go back to those. So it's sometimes, can I do something without that? Should I be maintaining the house? Should I be putting a shelf up? Or should I be looking for work? Or should I be practicing reading a script or whatever? Or can I just sit here and read my wonderful escapism, Dungeons and Dragons-esque fantasy novel and not feel guilty? And usually, the moment I do that is that I spend sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour before going to bed at night, or in bed, going, I've got an hour. No one can get at me. I'm in bed. Boom. That's when I read.
Yeah. But so, because the reason I guess we went all around this is a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how we're constantly working, or almost always working, even if it's not what appears to bluntly to be work, normal work. Lots of stuff goes into it. You do need time to step away. You cannot just 100% be focused on what you can, but it's a dangerous world to get into, to only focus on one thing and to eat, sleep, live that one thing. But what we've sort of established, and it won't be unique to us or to our professional or our industry, our world, but even when we are stepping away and taking time out, we're still working a little bit, or at least a little bit. There are links in there. So the old adage is that you shouldn't just put everything into one thing because you can burn out. But you can still do things that at face value seem to be no relation to your work, your vocation. But actually, they might still be helping you out in the long run, in a little way.
Yeah.
So
this podcast came about because of very many things, and this has turned out to be something that, to get us through things, has actually turned into something that has helped us enormously, professionally speaking, as well. So,
and it's a job. It is a job.
It's a job.
We're just lucky enough to love this as well. So we're in a hugely privileged position. I've said it before today already. We're in a hugely privileged position. Doesn't mean we don't work for that. Doesn't mean that we don't deserve it. But it's interesting to look at it and go, yeah, I have hobbies. Yeah, they're connected to my work. Doesn't mean I am blinkered and only looking in one direction. So, wow, what an interesting conversation that one was.
Really.
Next week, let's talk to someone else, because that is enough rabbit from us.
Yeah, we'll get off our hobby horse and see if we can find something.
So,
see that?
We'll see everyone next week with a lovely guest. Mate, have a cracker. I'll see you then.
And you, Sam. Take care, everyone.
So, see you later on. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.